Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 12th, coming up on 11:30 a.m. here. We're about to go over our 5,000th subscriber here, so thanks everybody for the support. If you guys are liking these videos, keep on liking, keep on subscribing. What we're looking at here is the North American continent here, and you can see most of the continental U.S. is pretty mild right now. The only areas below freezing are some of the higher terrains out in the west and North Dakota and Minnesota area. You can see all the cold air bottled up there in North Canada and the north slopes of Alaska. If you want the really warm air, you go to Florida or Hawaii today. So overlaid I have on this is the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. You can see that for once the Pacific Northwest is not targeted with above average precipitation, which means we're probably just going to have a few weak systems move in, but for the most part, a break from the precipitation, and we really need it out here in the Pacific Northwest. So removing the overlay here and zooming into the Pacific Northwest, you can see the current radar imagery here showing that atmospheric river still streaming into the Olympics in some areas of western Washington, mainly Vancouver Island right now. Check out these really warm temperatures coming up the Puget Sound all the way to Vancouver there. Vancouver Island in the 50s, Washington coast, lower mid 50s, Oregon coast, some upper mid 50s coming on here, and look at nice and warm in the Willamette Valley down there too. Spokane coming in 39. Some of the higher terrain is pretty chilly still in eastern Oregon. That 63 is an obvious error there. Kennewick getting in 43 down there, and you can see Wenatchee and Ellensburg 28 and 30 degrees. If we take a look at the visible satellite imagery, you can see our system out here. This is the last portion of the atmospheric river. Warm front lifting north through the day today. Then we're going to go through a cold front later on tonight, and then a bent back occlusion will keep precipitation going on into Thursday. So looking at some of the most important things right now, we have high avalanche danger for some areas right now in the Cascades. So if we back up a little bit here, you can see this high avalanche danger for west slopes of the Cascades and considerable down south, I-90 south generally. There's some lower avalanche danger for the Mount Hood area, but yeah, any east and west slopes of the Cascades, avalanche danger is considerable or high. So heads up there. You can see some of these warnings here about the rain continues as freezing levels rise to 7,500 feet. And wet snow avalanches are a big concern right now. So heads up there. And this is looking at landslide index. You can see Seattle and Tacoma still well above the threshold, and this precipitation just ended. So still for the next 2, 3, 4 days, we could still see landslides in the area and potentially big landslides. So you can see Seattle right on the threshold, Everett on the lesser side of it, so much less of a chance for places Everett north, probably increasing for areas such as Bellingham, a higher terrain on the slopes as you go north. Here's January precipitation here. Look at, you can see the rain shadow effect has been at work. You can see the lower totals here for Port Townsend, portions of Whidbey Island, and some of the San Juans there, and towards Sequim, versus the cutoff here just about Everett south across the Kitsap Peninsula there, and just huge totals on the west sides of the Olympic Mountains here, all the way down towards Aberdeen. Look at 16 inches of rain. Seattle is already above its monthly average, Hoquiam above its monthly average, and Olympia also, and numerous other areas are above their monthly average already. Check out some of these totals on the coast, over 12 inches of rain already in January, and we're not even halfway through the month here yet. So looking at the rivers right now, you can see we've got a couple at moderate flood stage right now, the Skokomish and the Satsup. There's also some flooding out here, the Grays River, that we'll look at here in a minute. But most rivers aren't doing too bad right now. We do have minor flooding and several rivers near flood stage, and that's going to continue to rise into the day today and tomorrow. There's still some precip going on, and it takes a longer response time for the water to come down into these watersheds once the rain is finished falling. We are still under an excessive rainfall outlook. Everything is marginal now. We had some slight yesterday. And checking out what's going on now, this is the GFS model here. You can see the warm front here on this mid-latitude cyclone that extends into western Washington. And you see that move north and really targeting British Columbia later on today. And still getting the BC mountains pretty good this evening. And then you'll see that weak cold front move through the region there, continuing to bring precipitation across western Washington, western Oregon, and BC there. And that system weakens and finally slides out of here. And you can see there's some Arctic air out ahead of this next system. It's going to be a big weather maker out on the East Coast. You can see this really huge nor'easter just offshore, just missing the East Coast on into Friday. But this next storm is going to make up for it. Check this thing swinging down through the southeast here. So this is going to be a big weather maker. You're going to hear a lot about this if you're listening to national news. Look at that storm just coming up the East Coast. They're probably going to have a good band of snow with it on the north side of that. And back to the Pacific Northwest, you can see some more precipitation, a weak atmospheric river sliding down British Columbia, but nothing like the big rainmakers we had. I mean, it looks like areas in central BC, central northern BC are going to get some good precipitation, but this shouldn't translate to much for western Washington or Oregon, as you can see it slide down through there. But again, any precipitation right now is not really needed, although this is next Wednesday, so this is next week. Letting us play into the future there a bit too. Looks like we go into a bit of a dry period coming in there till January 21st here. So it's something to look forward to. The only problem with dry weather at this time of the year, with a lot of precip and previous days, we start to look at the possibility of fog. And the more stagnant the conditions get, the more likely the fog is. So we'll have to look into that in the upcoming days here. Right now, this kind of shows the remnants of this atmospheric river that tapped all the way back into the tropics here. Coming up, it's finally getting pinched off. You can see the remnants of that warm front still bringing us precip today, and then you see that system kind of move in and end that atmospheric river, just a rapid demise to that atmospheric river. And you can see the next one out here, but it's not going to be a problem for us. But yeah, I bet a lot of people probably didn't know that about atmospheric rivers. They're all over the planet at any given time. Kind of like you learned that there was a monster underneath your bed, but it's not really that harmful most of the time. It's only when it comes into certain areas on land and stalls. So taking a closer look at the timing of precipitation coming up for today and tomorrow. This marks today. This is the NAM 3KM. We're about 7 o'clock here on the run. That's the UTC time right there, universal. And that's 18Z, so that's minus 8 hours. That's 10 a.m. for us here in the Pacific Northwest. And you can see that precipitation moves north into British Columbia. And we get a bit of a break, and then we come back into just after midnight Thursday into Thursday morning. You can see this modest cold front move through the region, just keeps the precipitation going all the way down through Oregon, mainly the coastal range and some of the Cascades. Looks like the Willamette Valley is a little bit rain shadowed on this cold front, and you can see it depart the region there. So looking at some temperatures here too, this is for today on Wednesday. Look at some of the Puget Sound areas getting up into the mid 50s. Willamette Valley, nice and warm. Oregon, Washington coast, pretty nice too. And you can see some of the lower levels into eastern Washington, Oregon, getting up into the 50-degree range today too. Check that out as we go into this afternoon. I mean, 58 degrees in Seattle. What are you guys going to do with yourselves? Check out the Willamette Valley. There could be some 60s down there today. I mean, that's downright warm. Look at Portland, 61 degrees. So enjoy it. Hope maybe we'll even get a sunbreak or two out of this today. Checking out temperatures across the region here, what we can expect for the next week or so. You can see our warmth from this atmospheric river still here Wednesday, Thursday. We cool off a little bit going into the weekend, but we might even get some sun breaks. We'll have to see how that goes. There's a couple weak systems nearby that could bring some high clouds, or we could get some fog if we clear out enough during that time. But you can see generally pretty mild on into next week at least. We'll look at the extended here in a moment. Checking out Portland too, you can still see, look at close to 60 degrees today maybe in Portland, and generally pretty mild going on through the week here. Spokane, generally around 40 degrees, a few chillier days mixed in there. Bend, Oregon, man, the place to be. Check this out. Looking for some mid-50s later this weekend and on into next week. Not bad over there. Some chilly overnight lows down into the 20s, but pretty typical for this time of year over there. Vancouver, BC here. This is the airport. Looks like generally above freezing, nice and mild, no cold air in sight yet on in through next week. So let's check out the extended here. And this is the European weeklies. This ran back on the 9th, actually. This model only runs, I think, a couple times a week. And it's hinting at some colder air in the region here, too. Some big ridging over the Pacific Ocean, which tends to allow for a north flow. But again, this is just something to look at and wish for right now. Because if we look at the CFS here, this is last night's CFS run. You can see it was hinting at a nice troughy situation with the big ridging and bringing that north flow over us into early February. But just check out the variability in some of these runs. We'll go to the 060, the very next run. As you can see in this morning's run, or last night's run, I should say, we still have the ridging out over the Pacific and up towards Alaska, but the cold air doesn't make as far as an advancement towards Pacific Northwest. So these are going to flip-flop back and forth as we go into the future here. And right now I'm just trying to find any consistency in these runs. And right now there isn't much, so it's just something to hope for if you're a snow lover, or if you're not a snow lover, you're hoping this doesn't, these signals stay the way they are and just kind of a mixed bag. So that is about it for today. I will have another briefing out tomorrow as per usual. I might miss a day here or there depending on what's going on and when the weather slows down a bit, but I'll always focus on the Pacific Northwest. And if there's anything going on at all, then I will have a briefing out. But otherwise, guys, keep commenting. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any ideas for the channel, and click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks.